So we're going to do a tier list of Rainbow Six Siege during Operation Ember Rise. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. I feel like that's the most efficient way to do it. I originally actually did this on stream, but it took about 40-50 minutes with how in-depth I was going. So yeah, I don't want to upload a 40-50 minute YouTube video. But if you have any questions, comments, you think I'm wrong, you think I'm right, whatever, let me know in the comments below. So we're just going to get right into it. Starting off with F tier, we got Glass. Glass has been nerfed. He now has to stay completely still to get the infrared effect of his scope, which standing still is not good in Siege. That's also why Tachanka's going there. I know for the sake of the meme, we want to put him higher. But in case there's any new players watching this, no, Tachanka is not actually a god. He is the worst operator in the game. That's why the meme is funny. And then we have Recruit. You can't even use him in ranked, but where else am I going to put him? You can't customize his guns, and he has no ability. And then we have, let's put Knock here. Knock is pretty cool, but she's got a horrible loadout, and her ability doesn't last long enough to get from point A to point B. So yeah, pretty useless. There's a certain few situations where I can see bringing her, but it's sort of those like, go for it situations, as opposed to, yes, that's a solid pick. And then we're moving on to E tier, Alibi. Similar to Knock, her ability is kind of useless, as well as the rest of these guys. But she has a better loadout than all of them, so that's why I'm putting her up higher. But her holograms themselves are pretty easy to spot. I don't even know why, because they look exactly like Alibi's character model. But it's just so unnatural to just see someone standing completely still on a perfect horizontal axis, not moving, not doing anything, to the point where you can almost spot them, instantly. And then we have Maru. She's also going in E tier. She's got some okay guns, but her ability forces you to rush stupidly, or you could drone, but then you lose all of that ambush and blitzkrieg effect of rushing. But more often than not, when you are grappling through a window, you might just get shot because your gun is down while you're grappling. Or if you're lucky enough to make it to the window, you might get blown up by a cap can. You might step in a frost mat. Or they might just have someone waiting there to shoot you in the head because it's super loud and easy to hear you. And then we get Ashe. Ashe is overrated. Her ability is overshadowed easily by several other operators, namely Sofia. Sofia does the same thing, but her explosives detonate instantly. They're actually slightly quieter, if you didn't know. And she also has 2 concussion mine launchable grenade thingies that you can use to soften up a target if you know where they are before you push them, or if you're not sure if someone's in a room, you can launch one of the concussions in there to confirm if they're there, because they will detonate on proximity. On top of that, she has an LMG if for whatever reason you need an LMG, and on top of that, she can get herself up. So there's pretty much no reason to use Ashe. I almost put her in F tier because of that, but she does have a good loadout, and she is pretty iconic with Siege, so I didn't want to be that brutal. Then we have Kavera, and high skill gameplay, platinum, diamond, champion. It's going to be very difficult to get an interrogation. Usually they're going to know that the defenders have a Kavera, and they're going to be able to just outright kill her or section her off. And then because you're not able to get an interrogation, all you really have is the silent step. And again, as long as the attacking team is thorough with their droning and stays together, Kavera isn't really going to be a problem. And then we have Vigil, also in E tier. He's got a great loadout, but his ability, I actually think, can be harmful. And here's why. It's because, yes, although you can't physically see Vigil instantly when he's using his ability, it does notify drones that Vigil is in the area. And if you haven't noticed, there's sort of a hot and cold system. Basically, the closer you are to Vigil as a drone, the more intense those white line effects get. So yeah, in a way, it actually kind of helps drones find him. So yeah, that's why I don't use Vigil a lot. He is fun to play. He's got good guns. But I've had more moments playing other defenders where I go unnoticed by a drone just hiding in a cheeky spot than I have with Vigil. So yeah, he's going in E. And then we have Goyo. He's in E tier also. I will say the Vector on a 2-speed feels really, really good and surprisingly different than it does on Mira being a 1-speed. But his ability is too easy to dispatch. It's too easily noticeable. It's not sneaky. More often than not, the attackers are going to have some sort of explosive that they can use to take it out. And actually, statistically, the Vulcan shields have killed more defenders on accident than they have attackers. So that's another reason you don't want to use him. Warden's going in E tier. Warden is going in E tier as well. That makes me sad. I think he's really cool, but unfortunately, you're really not going to run into a lot of situations where his Google glasses are all that helpful. Especially now with picks and bans in the game. A lot of the operators that he directly counters are going to be removed, or in Glaz's case, are so useless now, not a lot of people use him, and you're not even going to be able to counter him. So yeah, there's no point to bring Warden. Speaking of operators, Warden counters Blitz. All shields recently got a nerf where the ADS speed has been lowered, so it takes longer to get your shield down and longer to get your pistol up and aiming down the sights than it used to. So because of that, Blitz isn't nearly as aggressive as he used to be. Still has his use, but he's just not as scary as he once was. So yeah, he's going in D tier now. And then we have Dokkaebi. Some difficult to use but rewarding to master guns with the Boss G and I forget what it's called in Siege, but the EBR thing. But her ability, like some other operators on this list, is not as powerful as it once used to be. Now the call will actually automatically end after a set amount of time, and defenders can walk into a mute jammer to end it faster. And then we have Fuse. He's going in D tier as well. Cool operator. He's actually one of the few attackers that has access to both a shield and a regular assault rifle. So that's pretty cool, something to consider when thinking about Fuse. But his ability itself, it's too difficult to get kills with it. The sound of it is pretty easy to hear, and defenders can get away. If you're working in a coordinated team, you may be able to pull off a kill or sort of sheep herd the defenders in the direction of other attackers to get the kill themselves. But yeah, difficult to use, at least his ability. And more often than not, it's not going to work. And then we have Capcan. Capcan's going in D tier simply because his ability is way too easy to counter. The EEDs, the counter is super simple. It's look both ways before you cross the street, guys. Just look at a doorway before you walk into it, and then you know if it's safe or not, and then you can just shoot it and you're safe. The entire point of Capcan has been destroyed. And then we have Lion. Lion used to be like S tier plus when he was first introduced. He had like a 98% pick rate in Pro League. It was ridiculous. Literally everyone was using him. You could not escape him. But he's since been nerfed multiple times. And now he's pretty much just a gun. His ability isn't that scary. It doesn't last that long. It only gives pings. It's just not as good. And then we have Castle. Castle's a cool operator. And the C tier and above, the C tier is sort of like the 50-50. Sometimes they're useful on certain sites, sometimes they're useless. And D, E, F, they're like you rarely want to bring, F tier being like you never want to bring. Anyways, back to C. Yeah, Castle's going there. Ella's going there. She's really only good in close quarters. Her Scorpion, although it's a great gun, past 15-20 meters, if you're not landing, one taps, it's going to be pretty difficult to win gunfights. And then Finka, fun. I was thinking about putting her higher, but the thing is, I think she's most effective with a coordinated team. If she's just playing lone wolf solo queue, it's not going to be that big of a difference. But if you're playing with a team, it is. Because let's say all 5 of your attackers are stacked up, and then Finka presses her Adrenal Surge. So everyone gets plus 20 health, and everyone gets a recoil mitigation. So everyone suddenly turns into gods with their aim. And then on top of that, you have enough health to account for an entirely other player. That's a maximum of 100 extra health that the defenders have to burn through. So yeah, with a coordinated team, great. With not a coordinated team, we're playing solo, not so great. Then we have Kayid. He's good for hatches. His loadout is okay. He does have impacts and that TSG 12 whatever shotgun, which is pretty much a DMR. That's another hard to master but rewarding when you do kind of guns. And then he's got that mini AUG thing, which recently did get buffed, but it's still not better than the majority of the defenders' weapons. We have Monte Montaigne. He's going in C as well. Got a big shield. He's hard to kill. He's a human drone. Can give you lots of information. I was thinking about putting him higher, but as I said earlier, all shields recently got a nerf. So granted, he didn't have a lot of offensive capabilities before, but now he has even less offensive capabilities, and that's why I put him down from C, or I put him down to C instead of B. And then we have Capital. Not much to explain there. On some sites, the fire bolts will help you. On some sites, they won't. Rook, I was going to put him lower just because his utility is almost meaningless. It only blocks the damage of one shot to the chest, and it does stop you from bleeding out as fast. However, again, in high-skill gameplay, if the attacker's down someone, they're probably not going to let you revive them. However, his ability is super easy to use, and there's technically no countering it. Like, Rook just puts the bag of armor down, and then you pick it up. And then after that, he does have a decent loadout. He's got an MP5 with an ACOG, and he's got impacts. So, I mean, that's kind of the bread and butter of Siege. And then we have Ying. The reason I put her in 50-50 is because you are either going to blind your teammates 50-50 or blind the enemy 50-50. So she's either going to screw over the bad guys or screw over the good guys. I would put her higher, but I feel like it's kind of hard to even play with a coordinated team with Ying, because you throw them in the room, you have to wait for them all to wear off, or she can push in solo without her team, or they all push in, and then everyone's blinded but Ying. But she does have a good loadout. I'll be honest about that. She's got that LMG and breaching charges, which are good for vertical play. Yeah, and then B tier we got Bandit. A good Bandit tricker is nearly unstoppable unless you have a Maverick. He's a 3-speed. He's got that MP7, which is, in my opinion, one of the best guns in the game. And then we got Doc. He can heal his teammates. He can heal himself. Not only does that, mean he can heal himself, but strategically that means you can take more gunfights. Normally, if you get into a gunfight and you get hurt and you disengage and run away, now you're wounded. Whereas Doc, he can mitigate that. So that means you can take gunfight after gunfight after gunfight, or at least until he runs out of stems. And then we have Blackbeard, an expert in shutting down windows and making the defending team mad and getting rage messages. Basically what Blackbeard does is he blocks 3 or 4 headshots before his shield breaks, and he's got 2 of them. So that's essentially, 6 to 8 shots, headshots that he can just say nope to. And Siege, that is incredibly useful. And then we have Frost, because if you don't know, my viewers, in Rainbow Six Siege, a headshot with any weapon is an instant kill, 1-shot kill. And we got Frost in B tier 2. I was going to put her in D with Capcan because it's kind of the same. It's pretty easy to notice them. However, unlike Capcan, sometimes you can't do anything about the Frost mat. If you don't have an explosive and can't get an angle on it, you know it's there, but you can't do anything about it. Which means you either have to go around, go somewhere else, in which case, the Frost mat still kind of achieved its job, its area denial. Or you have to risk hopping through the window and into the frost mat and shoot at the frost mat before you land on it. But what if there's defenders in the room waiting for you to do that so they can shoot you? Then moving on, we got Gridlock. She thick. She got an LMG. She got the F90. Her track stingers allow you to shut down entire rotations and entire flanks and just congest an area with little sharp things that hurt you. I think she's underrated. I'd like to see her picked more. That's why I'm putting her in B. And then we got IQ. The more electronics that are added to the game, the more useful IQ is going to get. She's one of those operators that her relevance kind of sneaks up on you. Early on in Siege, maybe not that great, but as the game has grown and more electronics have been added, IQ is becoming more and more relevant. And then we have Jackal. Originally, I would put him in S tier, but he's since suffered several nerfs, which I think are unfair. I basically think because people are banning him all the time, Ubisoft had to nerf him just to get him back in the game. I think the Rainbow Six community is basically just nerfing him, or not nerfing, but banning him repeatedly because they don't know who else to ban. But he's still pretty good. I mean, he can still track enemies, not as well as he used to, because now the older the footprint, the less pings you get. But he does have the C7E, which is one of the best weapons, if not the best weapon in the game. He's got a secondary shotgun. He's got breaching charges. He's got smokes. He's a balanced operator. He's 2 speed, 2 speed, 2 armor. Not too fast, not too slow, not too weak, not too strong. He's in that sort of Goldilocks area. And then we have Mozzie. He's in B tier as well. You can either hack drones or just deny drones. If they see that little symbol, they just won't go that way wherever you have the pest drones. He also has a good loadout. He's got the Commando 9 and the Roni, and then he's got a secondary shotgun, and then he's got C4. And he's a 2-speed. So, yeah, he's a good operator. He's going to B tier along with Nomad. Nomad does the same thing as Gridlock, just in a different way. Their job, both of them, is to stop flanks and rotations from defenders, but track stingers do it by slowly hurting them or forcing them to make a lot of noise, whereas the Nomad will literally just put them on their ass for a 2-second animation. It's harder to use because if you're not nearby or have an angle on the air jab you placed, you can't capitalize on it and it'll kind of feel like a waste. But if you do go with a Nomad, you may get a few more kills than you would with Gridlock. And then moving on, we're going with Pulse. Pulse can give you direct intel as to where the enemy team is, and he's got a C4 to blow them up from above or below. So yeah, anything that gives you information in Siege is going to automatically be a high tier operator. And then we have Smoke. He's got one of those hard to master but rewarding loadouts, and he's got smokes, which are incredibly deadly, especially towards the end of the round when the enemy team is a little bit weaker and they don't have time. You can win a round just by one well-placed smoke. And then we're moving on to A tier. Buck. Vertical play is something you need to be doing, and Buck is good at vertical play. And unlike Sludge, he can do it at any range, whereas Sludge has to get close to the wall or floor to do it. Sludge is also going to go in A tier because they're pretty similar. They do the same thing, but in different ways. The benefit to Buck, as I said earlier, is he can do it at any range. The benefit to Sludge is that although he can't do it at any range, he can do more of it. He can destroy more floor, more wall than Buck can. His hammer actually does have like a breaking point, but I've actually never hit it. More often than not, you're going to take out an entire floor before that hammer breaks, so you don't really have to worry about that. And they both have grenades, so yeah, both A tier. And then moving on, let's go with Clash. Annoying operator to play against. She doesn't really have a lot of counters. I'd say the two only ways to directly counter her, other than just getting in her face and outright killing her, is Capitao and grenades. But if you see the Capitao or grenades coming, they're pretty easily avoidable. So a Clash is going to be a thorn in your side that you really can't do a lot about. She's going to slowly chip away at your health, and sort of like Montaigne, she's going to be giving information to her team, and pretty soon you're going to be getting shot at by people with actual guns. Then we have Jaeger. He might be going down soon. I saw something on Instagram of this new sort of Jaeger 2.0 that's going to be coming out next season. But for now, he's the only person in the game that does what he does, and that is stop grenades, flashbangs, smokes, launchables, anything like that getting yeeted through windows or pathways. And he's a 3-speed, and he's got a good gun. And then we have Mira. Mira's going in A tier. Her one-way mirrors can turn weak sights into strong sights. And she's got C4, and she's got the Vector. So yeah, she's going up there. Like, I remember when she was introduced to the game, it changed the whole meta. Because suddenly sights that were trash were the most desirable sights to be picked in the game. Such as, like, Basement on Oregon. And then we have Mute. Mute does a lot. He's a well-rounded operator. He's got a good loadout, 2 speed, 2 armor. He stops drones. He stops breaches. He stops Dokkaebi calls. He makes you invisible to line scans. And again, sort of like IQ, as more attacker gadgets are added to the game, the more powerful Mute gets. And then, who else? Let's go with Twitch. Twitch, she's sort of like Thatcher in the sense that she can help stop Defender electronics, but it's a little bit harder to use because you can shoot the shock drone. You can't shoot the EMP grenades. But she does have, in terms of DPS, the best gun in the game, the F2. And then moving on, I'm putting Sofia in A tier because, like I said earlier, she's like Ash, but better in every way. Her explosives detonate instantly. She's also got 2 concussions. She can get herself up. She's got an LMG. So yeah, I know a lot of people might be pissed about that. And I honestly think the reason people pick Ash is simply because they sort of unconsciously know that her ability is useless and that she has no strategic value on the team, and therefore you can take those ballsier plays and be risky and push stupid stuff because you know that if you die, it's not a big deal. You're not really going to hinder your team. Yes, you have one less player on the team, but it's not as big of a deal as if you lose your thermite or your buck or anything like that. You know what I mean? Then moving on to S tier. That's going to be... Yeah. These are my S tier operators, guys. And I'll tell you why in just a second, once I get them all up here. Echo. He can outright stop diffuser plants. Habana. She's one of the only few hard breachers in the game. She's more versatile than Thermite in that she can use all 3 of her Skyros to make, a normal big heckin' hole, or she can use them to take out hatches or do like a little prone hole or a little crouch hole, whatever you need. And then you got Legion. Excellent loadout, good guns. His ability, sort of like Smoke, it gets more powerful the longer the round goes on. Because let's say, there's 2 minutes and 40 seconds and you step into a goo mine with 100 health. Not a big deal. You take it out, you move on. But let's say there's 20 seconds left and you've been in a few gunfights and you now have 17 health. And you step onto that goo mine, that's going to have a bigger impact. It's going to waste, in comparison, more time and more health. So yeah, if you pick Legion and you stay alive, you can clutch the round easily. Speaking of clutching, we got Maestro. He's got that LMG, which we've all seen brutal 1v3, 4, 5 clutches. His gadget brings intel, it brings breach denial, you can even hurt enemies with it. So yeah, Maestro, easy S tier. Maverick, not only is he one of the few technical hard breachers, but he's also unique. So let's say Thatcher dies, right? Okay, or is banned. Bring Maverick. Let's say Thermite dies or is banned. Bring Maverick. Let's say Habana dies or is banned. Bring Maverick. He's sort of a one-man army for hard breaching. But let's see, you got Thatcher. Yep. We all know that combo with Thermite and Thatcher. And sort of like, IQ and Mute, the more electronics that are added to the game, the more useful Thatcher's going to become. And then we have Thermite. I mean, he's pretty simple. At first, I wasn't going to put him in S tier, as well as the other hard breachers, but then I got to thinking, you know, they're the only hard breachers. You know, there's 2, 3, maybe 2.5 of them in the game. So yeah, based on the rarity alone, but yet how important that is, even if it is simple, it's going S tier. And then we have Valkyrie, 2 speed, 2 armor, good loadout. She brings the black eyes, which if you place them in good spots are going to be hard to see and are going to give you a wealth of information to use. You can cover surprising chunks of the map with just a single black eye. So yeah, that is my tier list. If you agree, let me know in the comments. If you disagree and you hated it, dislike and let me know in the comments. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.